Flau'jae Johnson. Ooh, come on. Clark for the win. Sha'Carri Richardson.
Simone to make history once again.
The reigning Olympic all-around champion, Suni Lee.
Are you impressed yet?
I don't think I've ever believed that I couldn't do something that I wanted to do.
Did you see that arm? That is the world's greatest quarterback.
Tigist Assefa takes the world record. Let that sink in.
Today's the greatest day to be a woman in sports.
Attendance last night was 92,003. That's a new world record for attendance at a women's sporting event.
It's just sums of money that we've never heard of in women's sport.
A new record crowd in the history of women's football in Australia.
All right. Yes. Our moment is now, right? So if that did not get you all pumped up for what this panel is going to be about, I don't know what will, but this is going to be a great and amazing panel. I cannot wait. Definitely clap, amen if you want, agree, toast the water glass, whatever you need to do, because I'm really excited about this. So everyone, welcome to Breaking Barriers, Empowering Inclusivity in Sports Marketing. I am here at the IPG Common Ground. My name is Rebecca Roussell, and I head Inclusive Communications at Current Global, which is a PR agency, one of the IPG agencies. And we really lead with inclusion. We really build campaigns that help our clients look for those insights that really help connect and make human connection. And sparking those insights is definitely inclusion. So that is what I do. It's a passion I do daily. And I get the extreme pleasure of introducing the panel. To my immediate right is Miss Taylor Rooks. She's a multimedia sports journalist as well as co-host of Too Personal, not the sports podcast, but Too Personal, a podcast, amazing podcast. Next to her is Miss Flau'jae Johnson. Flau'jae is really a multifaceted superstar. She is also a recording artist with Rock Nation, but you also know her as a 2023 Women's College National Champion. Go Tigers. Anybody else from Louisiana in the room? Okay, go Tigers. And next to her is Bea Cornacchia. Bea, looking fabulous. Bea, you can leave that necklace, if you need to. Bea is the Executive Vice President of Marketing and Communications for international markets for MasterCard. So we are super excited to have you here too. And last but certainly not least is my PNC, Miss Bonnie Smith. Bonnie is the Senior Vice President, Head of Vivi and Culture Marketing at Jack Morton. Jack Morton also co-collaborated with us on this panel to bring this to life, so we are really excited to be here. I'm gonna say that multiple times because I really am excited to be here. So let's get started. So ladies, this question is for everyone. We know about women's sports, right? We're not strangers to this. But why is this such a new thing for everybody else? Is it that people are just late to the game? Why do you think we are having such a moment now for women in sports?
I've never met a mic I didn't like. I'll go first. I think that it's certainly a multitude of things. But something that has just become clearer and clearer to me during this time is I've always known the media is important, but it is a driver of almost everything that we have interest in. So the people or person that the media deems to be, the star of that time, that's who we all deem to be the star of that time. Narratives have a real power in our society, but certainly in sports, because people get tied to the characters of sport. You want to have a villain. You want to have someone who's sort of the hero. You like the redemption story. All of these things make people like sports. And I think that in women's sports, because there has been an uptick in storytelling potentially, people have felt more tied to the product that is on the court. But I think that that being a thing that's happening now is actually a failing of the media. Because if the media had put it in front of people earlier, this would have happened much earlier. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it should have happened a long time ago. And I think that everybody at this point is really trying to challenge themselves with, how can I be a part of pushing this forward? How can we make sure that this isn't something that is just a moment, but also how can we continue to shine light on all of the women that existed in the space that allowed Flau'jae to be somebody who has thrived in the way that she has. But I think it's been a focus on storytelling, the media actually doing our jobs and covering all sports. But it's certainly been really exciting and interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's storytelling. I think now we're in the age of social media. So whereas now it's like, you can't really run from it anymore. Even whatever they try to put in our face, it's like, you know, everybody has a podcast now. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but everybody has a podcast. And so everybody's able to create their own narrative. You know what I mean? And push what they want to push. And I believe that the talent has always been there. We have greats of the game. I was just talking to Sue Bird, and she told a story where she was like, we had at least 20,000 people at our championship game way back when, right? And it's like, those eyeballs, those fans that have already, they've been there, but now it's just getting more notoriety, and we're able to benefit from it in different ways, in college athletic, pros, and so on and so forth. So I believe right now, like she said, you don't want it just to be a moment, it needs to be the moment, and we build from there. So I think right now it's in a beautiful space, but it's just getting way more visibility.
Yeah, and I really feel that history needs to teach us something. I mean, I think that the modern Olympics Games started in 1896, something like that, and the female started to be part of that in 1920. So again, historically, we had some barrier. It was a fact, most probably because at that time there were all men CEOs that didn't realize that they were missing something very important. So of course, history is playing a role. But on the other side, I really feel that if we take values aside, I mean, if we don't do what we are doing right now, and I'm talking as a global brand like MasterCard, we are leaving half side of the world without representation, and it's wrong. Right now, more than 84% of the purchase are made or influenced by women. Yeah. So are we crazy? So that's why the time is now, but the time is now, and I'm gonna take full accountability and responsibility representing one of the top 10 brands in the world. We need to do now. We need to stop talking and doing. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like they already said everything, so I'll just build on to that. I think it's more than a moment, it's a movement. So the headline for me really is that there's this cultural shift. And I've thought about this a lot, right? Because if you think about this cultural shift, there's a few things that ladder up to that. And one of the things is social media and pop culture in general, right? Like when this was happening, Barbie movie came out and there's Barbie marketing and every brief came through with that. And we said, do you got Barbie money? What's happening? But, you know, it's about self-expression and empowerment of young women and girls. And then following that, you have Ashton Kutcher with his family and Mila Kunis and Kim Kardashian bringing North to these games. So you've got the power of the celebrities coming in and these young, wonderful, young rising stars coming to the forefront and using their platforms in ways that they are proud of doing. So there's that is amplifying this whole entire story. And then when you get to the stories, Taylor, like you tell and Cassidy tells, that's the biggest difference for me. It's who is telling the story. Women, we are telling the story. If you look at the films that are happening and the storytelling from the fans to the athletes to the journalists, we're controlling the narrative now. So that now can't just be the media. We can be the media, tell these stories, get it out there. And going back to Bea, what you just said, it's a $1 billion opportunity. Yeah. So look at that. Women controlling the world. But that is, you know, I think that's contributing as everybody wants to support women now.
Yeah, and I just want to add on that too, because more than it just being that, okay, yes, everyone should watch women's sports, it's also just, it's smart. It is genuinely like it's a smart business move. The national championship last year had more viewers than any World Series game since 2019.
Yes.
Any NBA Finals game since 2017.
Yeah.
So people are watching it. They're consuming it. And I also think that in some ways we have to, and I mean media and also consumers, have been somewhat lazy. And what I mean by that is we have not been expanding what our definition of sport is. For example, I know what people mean and the point they're getting across when we say we're talking about women's sports. But we're also just talking about sports.
Right.
We're just talking about sports.
Right.
And the more and more we say that, we're actually reinforcing this idea that men are the default. So the same way that we say the NBA, but we say the WNBA. Why is it not the MNBA? Why do they get to be just the one that is the standard, and then the women become an add-on? And so I understand that in so many ways these are the systems that we have put in place, so like it's hard to get out of them. But it's just that the way that we talk about these things actually has a lot of power because it influences the common thought that is around the sport. So it's smart to be involved and invested in women's sports, but we also all have to be smarter about the ways that we speak about sport generally.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I agree. I look at it from a different perspective as well, right? Because I was just talking with the CEO of Pepsi, and he was just saying how like it's not just women's sport; it's just sport, right? And I agree, but I also agree like. I love that tagline on it as well because it's something that hasn't been celebrated in so long.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's something that hasn't been put in the forefront for so long. But I see both sides. It's like I hate when they say, oh, she's a female, but she's great. Don't tell me I'm just a female. Tell me I'm great.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I see both ways. So I definitely love that. No, right. Most definitely.
I love that. Like, or the female Michael Jordan. Why can't I be the female Flau'jae? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's who I am. No.
Because they believe for so many things. I'm not going to rant on this forever because I could.
But for so
many things that are literally baked into society, men have been the standard.
Yes.
So we then are measuring ourselves to men.
Right.
Which is putting them on this pedestal, which I'm sorry, I don't know if anyone needs to be on a pedestal. But for men, I think specifically, things have been catered to them in such a specific way that I even think sometimes men are blind to the ways that this is happening in society.
Yeah.
Women never are, though.
Right.
Because it's not us that is being put there in the same ways.
Right. No. Great. I told y'all it was going to be a good panel. Bea, I want to go to you because we, when we were prepping for this, you talked about representation too as well. And you also, as a person, a senior leader in MasterCard, sitting at these tables, probably these rooms, male dominated. How does that feel as being a woman in the position and the position that you are in and the decisions that you get to make?
I feel super cool. I'm not worried at all. They need to be worried.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes.
Okay. Jokes aside.
Yes.
So, no, jokes aside, you're right. I mean, I've been working quite a lot in MasterCard and in this industry, and there were a lot of times in which I was the only female in the room. But of course, I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. I felt that I have my seats on the table and I had to exercise, basically. Now, with this in mind, I also feel that as a global brand, we really need to do our part, as I said before. And what we are doing in MasterCard, which is fascinating, we are looking about gender equality. For me, it's not about percentage. It's not about giving people the same, it's giving them the same chance, giving them the same opportunity. Then it's up to you to decide what you want to do, because you may decide that you don't want to sit at the table, and it's totally okay. So we are looking from three main parameters. First, what we are doing from a gender equality, from a community perspective. And community has a lot of angles. What MasterCard is doing, we are very strong in financial inclusion, so we are financially including a billion of people, of which more than 50 million are female, because it can be strange, but in some part of the world, the majority of the SME are led by female. And giving them financial dignity, we are including them in the financial world. But when we speak about community, that's when we speak about sport. MasterCard has a long-lasting relationship with sport. We are sponsoring the biggest event, which by nature in the past have been male-dominated, but now MasterCard is sponsoring Arsenal, the female team. We are sponsoring the Rugby World Cup female. We are sponsoring the British Open female stuff. I'm saying female just to explain.
Yes,
but
we get it.
I get it. But on the other side, we did something beautiful, which I'm super proud. There was a rugby female team in South Africa that didn't have the money to survive. Yep. And thanks to what MasterCard, they bought them everything, uniform, whatever. Wow. Now they are winning the township tournament. Wow. That's priceless. So that is really what we should do, because most probably these people, this lady, they can teach to the others and they can be ambassadors. Leaving a legacy is not just a word. You need to do by fact. Yes. So this is the community. The second part is about people. In MasterCard, we have equal salary. $1 for a man, $1 for a female. And I can tell you, it wasn't always the same. It was not always like that. So very important. And then last but not least is markets. What are we doing in order to enable in the markets all the right products for our female community, which, by the way, as I said before, they represent the majority of the purchase that we are doing.
Oh, that's amazing. If you don't have a MasterCard right now,
you have to.
I'm just helping you out, Bea, so you can get some new members. I'll also go to Bonnie. You know, we talk about how diversity is so important, and I work in diversity, and it definitely is challenging, especially now, as it relates to brands that are cutting budgets, not wanting necessarily to do the work. Made all of these commitments in 2020, and you're looking for them, and it's like you still have this diverse audience that you need to speak to. But we also know that intention is very important too as well. So tell us a little bit about how you guide clients as it relates to what they're doing with their different diverse audiences, and how do you show up to the table with that kind of counsel?
Sure. Okay. So one of the, we were launching Vivi, and we were trying to think of what's a way that we're going to just make a bold move and just really, we're going to be a little provocative. So the guiding counsel starts very boldly with a statement of, could you imagine ignoring a $5 trillion market whose needs have gone largely unmet? Nobody on that other side of that table is going to say, yeah, sure, I can imagine it. Everyone says no, and then they kind of think about it. And I'm like, great, yeah, we can't either. So the guiding around inclusivity is around those different types of individuals. It's, there are segments of individuals based on, whether it be race or ethnicity or female, male, et cetera. But what we guide and talk about is celebrating intersectional diversity, because all of us up here don't just identify as a woman. So if you don't speak to me and understand all the identities that I claim, and that does make us different and also unique, but that's what powers my story, empowers me to move through this world, and then powers a brand to actually connect with somebody, then you're not going to win. So the guiding counsel starts somewhat from within. Are you doing the right thing as a marketer, as a leader? And then what are you doing for your communities and to serve them as well? Because you're asking them for a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So Flau'jae, we'll pivot a little bit with some brand endorsements. So the NIL landscape is off the chain, okay? I just want to say, I put down my basketball when I was in 6th grade, and I'm trying to go back. For real. But I want to ask you this question, because you already have an amazing mind. You're already thinking about yourself as a brand, because you are. Yes. So what do you think makes yourself so attractive to other brands and the deals that you currently have? Because just like I said, it is so competitive now as a collegiate athlete. So what do you think is that spark that really makes you?
I mean, even in a league full of talented, beautiful women, I still feel I'm in a league of my own with everything. Yes. No, with everything that I do, I think just me being multifaceted, right? I am an artist, I am a basketball player, I'm an entrepreneur, and so much more. And I think, you know, brands just want to align with that. Because, you know, I mean, my mom, she had the plan all along. First momager right here. Yes, momager right here. You know, she had the plan all along of keeping me clean. You know, she's always said, Flau'jae, like, you know, your music is so good, you don't even have to curse. Like, you can keep it clean, you can keep it positive. And then I kind of figured out, like, wow, like, this is my way to be different and really change the world. Like, because anybody can listen to my music, you know? I'm at my basketball games at the PMAC in Baton Rouge, and all the fans come up. We've got a lot of old fans. And they'll come up to me, they got gray hair and everything. I'm an old white man, and I love your music. It's so good. Me and my granddaughter listen to it all the time. And it's just like, you know, music can penetrate through so many lanes, right? Through so many people, and it brings people together. It's just like sports bring people together.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I add that value because I know my value and I know what I bring to the table. So brands really want me to represent them, and I take it serious. Like, I know that if a brand is putting money behind me, putting resources behind me, that, you know, I have to take this serious. It's a business at the end of the day. So I really take it serious, and I want to have a business of my own one day. I want to sign athletes and have them market my company. So I just kind of just use it kind of as an internship. You know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of think of it in that way. It's like I'm interning for them because that's where I want to be one day.
Yes.
And I think I just represent myself really well. So, you know, when people try to partner with me, then I tell them and I let them know, like, I'm going to represent you really well as well.
I also think a very important element of what works for you, and something I know you are proud of, but you should be very proud of, is that you have been able to have this business and have these eyes by simply being yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that authenticity shows. I think people are very drawn to you. I'm gonna tell you this. I was in LA, I think it was for ESPYs week. She got up on the stage and you weren't nervous at all.
Oh, no.
You have the best stage presence. You just went out there. And I think people don't realize how much confidence that takes to go. And I mean, LeBron was there, Draymond was there, and she was just rapping and people knew the lyrics. And I think that it's you. I know that you know that, but it is you specifically that has allowed this world to open up in these ways.
Yeah, and I thank you. And I believe, and I'm a firm believer, is like, if you see it, you can believe it, right? And the only person that I seen go hard was my mom. My dad died before I was born, and so all I knew was my mom. And my mom never took no for an answer. Absolutely. And she never told me no. Like, sometimes that could spoil a kid, but for me, it let me know that I can get anything I want. Like, anything is attainable. Yeah. So I think that's where that confidence comes from. She always instilled in me. She told me every day, like, you're beautiful. You're gonna do great things. You're gonna be big. And so I kind of just walk with that confidence, and I try to inspire little girls to do the same.
Absolutely.
Because I tell them, like, basketball is 90% confidence, 10% everything else.
That's amazing. Like, I love that because it's really speaking to, I don't have to ask permission to be in this room. I know I am going to be in this room, or I should be in this room. I have every right to be in this room. And even if I may ask questions or may not know something, I'm going to find the answer. But walking in this space and walking in whatever space you are and having that confidence is so important. I love that.
I also really love that answer too, because, like, when is the last time, I'm saying to the women in the room, the last time that you just maybe looked at the mirror or talking to your friend and you said, I am really good at my job? I don't know if we do that enough. Like, I don't know if we just sit and say.
I do that every day.
Yeah, girl, me too.
My leadership in the audience may be like,
no, you have to. You have to look in the mirror. Because I'm going to these rooms with all these big people, so I have to look. You that one. Let's go. You got this. Yeah. Let's go. Like pep talk. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
And it's important to know that you're one of the best. And like, we don't always say that. I always say to people, I was interviewing Jason Tatum, and he was talking to me about a time that he went onto a basketball court, and he said, well, you know, and I'm a big deal, so I thought, and he so casually said it. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna start saying that. Right. Like, men always feel very emboldened to talk about the things that they are good at. And I just think women should do that more, because if it is fact, if you're good at something, you should not feel shy about saying that. So now I say, no, I believe that I'm one of the best interviewers. I believe that I'm one of the best in this space, because if you aren't saying that about yourself, no one is going to say it for you.
Yeah, no, great. These are all great points. So Taylor, let's pivot to media. You were recently on a Boardroom podcast and talking about narratives. And there's a lot of people talking about women's sports, very opinionated. Some lack facts.
Yes. Many. Yeah.
And also, there's a lot of men talking about it too. We're not bashing men. We're just literally talking and speaking the facts. There's lots of new eyes on the game now. So how have those narratives played into women's sports in general? And has that helped the conversation and this momentum going? Or has that kind of retracted from that and put a bit of a stain on it?
Well, I mean, I think it depends who's talking, for starters. But what I was really saying on that show is that we all know and recognize that women's sports have had an uptick, that people are paying attention to something they should have been paying attention to a long time ago. But it doesn't feel like the media is always meeting the moment. Meaning, are they well informed? Are they positioning themselves as experts even though they are not well informed? I know when we started, you were talking and you said, we are not new to this. I think that we should normalize people being able to say, I don't know. Yeah. Yes. Because a lot of the people that are talking about this don't know. And the reason that it is more damaging for them to not know but position themselves as though they do is people are listening. Yes. So you have a mic, and you're on TV, which makes people already think you are an authoritative person in the space. But if you're spewing something that is genuinely hurtful, that is damaging to all of the progress that everybody has made up to this point, if you are stereotyping women, if you are using language that puts women in boxes, you are really hurting the progress that we have made. If you are deciding already that a certain person is the best of the best without allowing other people room to grow, you're also hurting what we're doing. And we continue, I think, in media to speak about women in ways that we just simply don't speak about the men. And it isn't just, off the court opinion things. It's things that happen on the court that are simply a part of sport. And so I think the media really just has a responsibility that they haven't necessarily taken to heart to understand the full scope of things. Something that's very important to me is speaking to people that have lived the experience. I have a lot of conversations with Sue Bird. I have a lot of conversations with Candace Parker, with your former teammate, Angel Reese. I think it's important to speak to people that have lived the experience. So at least when I am having these discussions, it's coming from a real place, because there are things that even I don't know, and it's important to normalize that.
Can I build on that, actually? Because Taylor, you just said something so important in our brand work. Speak to people who have the lived experiences to help create the stories that are being told, right? I mean, that's perfectly what we're talking about in sports marketing. How can we tell true stories, and how are we educating people if we're an authority on something and we're changing the minds and the hearts of people? We're not actually talking to the folks who've lived it.
Yes.
That's perfect.
Totally.
Right. I wanted to follow up on that too as well, because I actually recently saw a Pew survey that really talked about the percentage of male sports reporters. And according to that Pew,
it's a lot of them. Speak about lived experience, man, oh man, there's a lot of them.
That's what I was about to say. We can roll right into lived experience, because I think it's very important for this conversation too as well, because it's not, sports marketing is everything, right? And that's why we have such a diverse panel. And what Bonnie said earlier, we're all women, but the different identities that we do have. And so that Pew report said that 83% of men are sports reporters compared to 15% of women. Do you think we will ever get to parity as it relates to that?
I mean, I can say I hope we do. I hope that we do. In all honesty, I'm surprised that it is only 83%. I thought it would maybe be 90-10. This is a thing, I think, another thing that hurts us when we are not having stories told by the right people. One of the reasons I love Together, which is a media company that Sue Bird, Alex Morgan, Simone Manuel, and Chloe Kim created, is because it is women very intentionally telling stories about women. But one of the best parts of it, though, is they understand that these people are athletes. And what I mean is sometimes when more national media decides to take on a story about an athlete that happens to be a woman, the story is told through the scope of them being a woman. So you don't even really allow people to know that they're good at their sport because the story has something to do with overcoming this hurdle of being a woman, as opposed to how they won the championship, or how they ended up being, the best point guard in the league. So you pigeonhole women by only focusing on one aspect of their identity. But Together is very focused on the story, how you became one of the best. What do you like outside of your sport? It's about them as full people. And I think women, and why we need more sports reporters that are women, understand that storytelling is holistic. It's not just about you talking about one aspect of somebody. There's this author named Flau'jae Johnson, and she wrote in this essay that what we have to be better at is telling stories about people and their problems, not problems and their people. Meaning what we center when we tell stories is very, very, very important. And I think women have a better understanding of that when they interview, when they report on things. And so there just needs to be more there. I don't know the answer if it will happen, but I hope that it does.
Yes, we all hope that it does. Bea?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something because you were saying storytelling, and I think this is a very important component. What we are trying to do in Mastercard is to shifting from a storytelling to a story making. So I give you a small example that I'm super proud, and the people that made this happening are in this room, my friends of McCann. So when I joined the EMEA team, I wanted to do something in Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia, for people that are not aware, at that time, 7 years ago, was forbidden to use a female to do an advertising campaign unless the product that you wanted to advertise it was really female. And but guess what? I really wanted to do something different for this market, and I wanted to leave a legacy. So Mastercard sponsored the Champions League. One of the assets that we have is giving the possibility to kids to be the player mascot, entering with their idol. I wanted to do a campaign in Saudi, but just focus on a female football team, which was already a big statement. Then the person that won was a female, a little lady that her dream was entering the pitch for the final match of Champions League. Now, we presented the request to do this movie 5 times to the local jury, and they have refused 5 times. People that were with me in this journey are in this room. And there was a moment we just said, Bea, maybe we need to give up. And then I said, no, because no doesn't exist in my vocabulary.
Come on.
Tell me what I need to do in order to turn in a yes. And then we discovered that to get the approval, her dad should be in agreement. I said, okay, let's talk to the dad. I said, Bea, you can't. Why I can't? Yes. So I had this interesting meeting with the dad of this girl, and finally he said yes. And finally we were the first brand in Saudi that was doing a movie, very charming movie, with a little girl that finally we made her dream coming through. So this is what does it mean turning from a storytelling to a story making. And actually the beautiful story was we put this film on air, and the first half an hour, we got a lot of negative feedback. Of course, it's a very traditional market in Saudi. So then I have my boss, well, not my boss, because I don't have boss. I'm the only boss of myself. Period. I have my leader. Okay, I have my leader. Okay? So whatever they say is, he's your boss, I said, no. I'm the only boss of myself. Yes. He's my leader. That maybe I decide to follow, but that is another story. So jokes aside, and then I saw negative feedback on social, and then I had the agency, my PR agency. My leader says, Bea, maybe we need to put this film down. No way. I didn't do anything badly. And the beautiful story, and that is the beauty of human being, is that all the other people started to fight for us, to say, no, they did the right things. And in a few hours was the peak of the day, and we did a lot of likes. So it is possible. We just need to believe in that.
Yes, everything is possible. Love that. And Bonnie, I want to pivot to you too. Now that there are so many eyes, right? So now you probably have clients or you're working with brands that may have been a little bit, late to the game, and they want to like jump in and say, wait, let's get in this moment. Like, what do we need to do? How do we need to do this, and that? So because like the moment is there and everybody is talking about it now, how do you help your clients like differentiate themselves out of such a competitive space as it relates to this?
That's such a good question. Okay, so there's kind of two parts to this.
Mm-hmm.
First is, and we talked about this at a recent leadership meeting, we work with individuals and who inspire us as well, and so we're following them, not just the brands. So if you're coming to us to say, well, we want to jump in on this moment, I go back to what I said in the beginning. It's a movement. Mm-hmm. So are you ready to actually be a part of it and do it your part and what you need to do to actually give back to the communities that you want to serve? Because again, and I heard this the other day too, is brands needing to make sure that they're investing in that $5 trillion market instead of just trying to extract from it, right? So there's that part, but then there's other things in terms of, I do best by examples. We actually were very proud of the work that we did with Adidas. And so it was Adidas Liquid Billboard. Mm-hmm. And so part of the guidance is we showcase the work and we say, this is what best in class looks like. And their values aligns with female empowerment and wanting to bring up young girls. And so they had their campaign, and we basically, they came to us to say, how do we cut through the clutter in terms of this new swimwear line that we have? And it was all about inclusivity, and it was inclusive swimwear. And so what do? Because we're in experiences, we created the world's largest swimming pool, and it was a live, large billboard in the middle of the desert in Dubai. And basically, it was around an insight that almost 80% of women feel uncomfortable around body positivity and being in a swimsuit. And all the ads that are spoken to them are models or other athletes. And so what we did was we actually put real women into the campaign, and they wore the swimsuits, they got to feel it, and then they dove in. And so it's diving in to unleash that positivity and be really, really impressive and feel bold and feel that power that you guys are speaking about. And I just love hearing that because it gets me very excited because that didn't always happen, right? Yeah. And the impact of that was over 300 million impressions across 60 countries. Wow. 60 countries. So all these women who grow up in these different countries who were told they can't talk or they can't have a voice or they can't learn, all the way to we can't be on TV and have media want to be, attend to us. We show these examples that we can say it can be done. 1, 2, there are brands investing in it. 3, absolutely. Look at the impact that you're driving for your brand, your values, and women, and for your bottom line.
Absolutely. I actually have a question, just because I'm curious listening to you all speak.
Absolutely.
Like, something that we're hearing a lot right now just around sports is, okay, who's marketable, right? Someone is the most marketable star, but no one is like defining what that means to be marketable. So I'm curious what marketable means to you all, but then also for you, how you like to see athletes marketed.
Ooh, that's a good thing. I don't like okay. Once something becomes big, I think it becomes oversaturated, right? Mm-hmm. And the stories start to become the same, even though everybody is different and unique. So I think it's just about brands getting away from the norm, right? Mm-hmm. And not being afraid to break those barriers and market them differently. Because I think, there's a market for everything. I feel like every individual is different, so you have to make the stories different. And it gets so boring for me when I do a deal or with a company and they send me the brief, y'all. You know how many briefs I get? And they say, oh my gosh, you a rapper and a basketball player? Go to the studio, go to the gym. I'm like, guys, I posted that like 6 times. They don't want to see that anymore. Like, maybe they want a deeper dive,
For sure. This is great.
Get creative.
Get creative. And I kind of take that into my own head because I'm like a creative nut job and I just love doing those type of things. But it's just like, try to go deeper. You know what I'm saying? And that's why for brands, what I would say is like I hate getting on the Zoom calls because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. The most different thing I did was with Meta and Ray-Ban, right? They have these new Meta glasses. Yes. Love them. And they're like, and I'm playing with the glasses. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really dope. Like, I really love this. Right. And they're letting me they're like, we have ideas, but you get creative and you push the narrative and you do it. So I think when you give, the creativity to the athlete and say like, what are you interested in? And then try to build around that, I think is much better, like in a bigger space to market.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, I never questioned myself if an ambassador is markable, because the way we are choosing an ambassador is, do we have the same values?
Yeah.
What do I want to communicate? And actually, I don't know if you saw some of the content that we produce, I don't know, with Messi or with some of the biggest ambassadors. It's a real story. The story that we told about Messi was a real story. So normally we don't create content for an ambassador. We want to talk to ambassador and understanding what the ambassador wants to talk about, because otherwise I wouldn't choose that kind of ambassador. For us, choosing an ambassador is much more important than sponsoring an event, because that ambassador does represent my brand. And if her values are not in sync, I do have a problem. That's why I'm interested in people, real people like you, that can say something. But if I'm telling her what to say, it's not genuine anymore. So what's the point?
It's not genuine, not authentic.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
Flau'jae, thank you for plugging our Meta Beach experience there. So
accidental plug,
it was cool though, right?
I was about to say, IPG, Flau'jae has a knack for creativeness. So whenever you finish, you can definitely have a job at any one of these agencies. I can't make that decision, but I mean, I know some people, so just letting you know.
I'm here on my interviews,
Let me tell you something.
My mama Jerry.
Look, that's what I'm saying. But no, I'm great. I love that, because that also is taking ownership, again, of your brand. And not going into rooms and going into spaces and letting brands also dictate to you what you do, because it's very, very important. You also have values as well.
Exactly.
And sometimes the partnerships are not mutually beneficial, and that is okay.
Can I say something about
that? Yes, absolutely.
I'm big in community and service. I'm just tell you a little bit about my story. I'm gonna keep it real short. My father, like I said earlier, he died before I was born. He was murdered in May. I was born in November, right? Mom carried me, what we about to do. And I'm from Savannah, Georgia. It's crime-ridden city. Like, we were once the murder capital in the world, and it's not that many people in Savannah, My mom's dad was murdered in Savannah. My dad was murdered in Savannah, and my dad was murdered in Savannah. So that goes to tell you, like, it's three different generations. And I'm so proud of this. The building that my father was murdered in front of, I have officially acquired from the city, and I'm turning it into a resource center. When I talk to my partners and my NIL deals, I'm telling them like, this is something that I'm about to cry. I'm sorry. This is something that I'm really interested in. You know what I mean? And I'm turning the building into like a resource center for kids to come. It's gonna have a basketball court in it because I play basketball. It's gonna have a studio in it because I rap.
If y'all didn't know.
And then it's gonna have.
Y'all didn't know by now.
Yeah, it's gonna have like a financial literacy center and a tutoring center in it because I want to push this to the kids. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, but that's what I'm saying with brands. Like, it's important to listen to them because.
Yes.
I want to get that story across because I made it like the stereotypical thing for black kids is to play basketball or rap, right? And so I'm showing them like, you can do both, right? But you can also be educated. You can also be smart. You don't have to be one-dimensional and teaching them about that. So when I talk to brands, I really try to get them on a deeper level and a deeper mission. Because even though I'm an athlete, that's not all that I do.
Absolutely.
I want to really make change in the world and make positive change. So like when I'm talking to these brands, I'm telling them like, it's real stories with real athletes and it's ways that you can help. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I was talking about, being creative and things like that. Like, I think that is so important. Like, your story was inspiring. That's why I had to tell you about my story. And thank you so much. And so I just think it's so important that with everybody in the room, whether who you partner with or who you try to think deep and ask them deep questions about how they could really want to make change, because I think it's really important in this space.
I am so glad that you said that, Flau'jae, because my day-to-day work when I counsel our clients on the public relations side is always about not being performative. I also am so invested as well to tell our clients, you're dealing with audiences here. And just because these audiences are not the norm that you're used to dealing with, or you don't necessarily know, or don't want to necessarily be intentional about finding out, like Taylor, like how you said, like we have some people that are new. I think the key part of that is being intentional, because it takes intention to unlearn behaviors. And it really takes intention to really unlearn what has been the status norm. You don't have to be the status norm. Look at this. Like it's great to be diverse. And I let people know that being performative is not going to help you. Going in one and done, that's not going to help you. If you necessarily took a moment in time, like for example, 2020, and this was the first time you ever spoke to a diverse audience, that's okay. But you need to be committed to that and have a longer strategy, because this type of work takes time. And I love what you said again, Flau'jae, about that, because I want to make sure that people understand and know it's a mutual beneficial partnership. And that should be what, as brand leaders, then the brand leaders that are in the room, that should be what you want to as well. You shouldn't want someone that is literally just going to fall by the wayside. You have a brand to protect, and so does the brand ambassador. So this was so great. Like
we're here not just to sell products. We are also all about economic empowerment.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I love about what you're doing, because you'll always be an athlete, but you may not always play. So what are you going to do as you move on up, and then getting into, you might be in VC and investing in other Black women, businesses moving forward, and just see the other people who are about, in your community space. Then now they saw you, and they could do that too. So it's just very.
And I always say, like, one day the ball is gonna stop bouncing.
Absolutely.
And I say, I'm so grateful to be in this NIL space. But I tell them we only have 4 years, and I try to make my 4 years set up my next 40. You know what I mean? And just using my opportunity. So I just think, and I know the influence that I have, and I understand the responsibility that I have, and I understand that takes me to be accountable, and it holds me accountable to a certain standard. So, and I know the little girls that are watching us. So I just try to. It's pressure to do that, but I told somebody it's good pressure. It's pressure to make the right decisions.
And it's okay, though, because you are you.
Pressure make diamonds.
Right.
I like diamonds.
Yes. And I also love when women give each other flowers, because that's uplifting, because I think there's also this narrative that we are fighting each other and all of this kind of stuff. There's so many narratives we got to break, right?
Fix her crown.
Right. We're going to put that crown on. I love this organic conversation. I love it. And how the conversation just kind of developed a little bit outside of some of my questions. But I wanted to kind of pivot back to you, Flau'jae, when you talked about like those next years. So of course we know WNBA, your sport, basketball, is absolutely everywhere. When I actually was preparing for, when I was preparing questions for this, my colleague Damar, we created like an Instagram group chat, and everything that was on Instagram, I was just saving it, just on stuff, anything specifically as it relates to women's sports. But of course, a lot of that was dominated by WNBA. So how are your feelings on the moment and the movement that the W is having right now?
It's beautiful to watch as a fan, right? And it's even beautiful to kind of say, oh, I did a little bit of that. I brought a little bit of eyeballs to the game.
You did.
It's an honor, though. Okay. And then you meet legends like Sue Bird, and she tells you, I love what you're doing. I want to support you. Sue Bird gave my first documentary on Together. It's called Phenom. It's beautiful. She allowed me to tell my story in high school.
Yes.
But I love to see it. But speaking of what you was talking about in the media, I don't want our sport to turn into something ugly, because it's so beautiful, right? And I think that we need to push the positive. Just, you can't really take the negative out. You're going to get it. That's what come with the territory. Right. But we have to push that positive. We have to push the beautifulness of the league.
Yeah.
We have two of the biggest rookie stars in the league, and we're trying to make them come back.
Look what you just said.
Help them embrace each other.
Yes. We have two of the biggest rookie stars, and that's important.
Yes.
Right, Taylor, back to what you said. what you're choosing to say to the world.
Yeah, you have to talk about everyone.
Exactly.
Because I don't think that the narrative, not even think, I know that the narrative has not been about there being two. It has been about there being one. And that is not to take away from the one. She is fantastic.
Absolutely.
But there's lots of fantastic around the league. Some fantastics that won a national championship.
Come on now.
I know, that's you. Absolutely. So we really, again, have to be able to do more than one thing.
Yes.
And talk about people the right way. Because to your point, we have really made this like a polarizing thing.
Yes.
And people, I think, are finding a lot of joy in letting these women be symbols for something else.
Yes.
And the symbol that they want them to be is something that is very nasty and very divisive. And it isn't productive.
Right.
These are deeply talented, smart, entertaining women.
Yes.
And that is the way that we should talk about them. I also think in a lot of ways, a bit of a tangent, we have to also watch the way that we can objectify these women at times, specifically on social media. I think that sometimes when we are talking about these women, it is all through like the lens of attractiveness.
Yes.
And what people don't like to say about beauty a lot is beauty is politics. What we deem attractive, what we deem to be the standard is rooted in a lot of other things. So if you are saying that you believe someone to be attractive, you're leaving other people behind. And you're leaving them behind because of what society has created. And this is more, again, why we have to talk about these athletes, about them being athletes, about their skill, and do it with all of them, not just one.
Yeah, like on top of that, like I played with Angel Reese and I played against Caitlin Clark. You know, and I can tell you that all three of us believe, it's enough food at the table for everybody to eat.
Yes.
You know, and like she said, fix her crown.
Yes.
You know, lift each other up because we haven't even got to the pinnacle of what we can create. So, you know, like when Caitlin Clark got the $20 million shoe deal or whatever, some people were upset and I'm like, oh my goodness.
This is great news.
The $20 million door, Caitlin.
Yes.
I'm like, thank you, Caitlin. You just opened that door. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's how you have to look at it. As you look at everything as opportunity, and you kind of change your view. Instead, it's like, man, how come I didn't get? And it's like, oh, you just opened the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I believe that, you know, the media paints the narrative when it is not even how the players feel. You know what I mean?
And to that point, it's like, when you are hearing people talk about this, very rarely is it women.
Yes.
Very rarely is it women that have these ideas about these players. And most of the time, it is men that are pushing this narrative.
It is.
Because like you said, the women in the league don't think this at all.
Yeah, no.
Like,
complete opposite.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite. So we have to be careful about, you know, what we decide to give weight to. Yeah. But the people who are speaking also have to understand the weight of their words as well.
So I'm very passionate about this. Even though DEI, multicultural and inclusive, that's my day job, right? But as a lived experience as a Black woman, it's also things that I live every day. And my friends and some people, even some colleagues, have asked me, Rebecca, why is it always about race or gender for me? Because it is. And I talked about this yesterday on a panel when I was talking about authenticity. I've had people tell me before, well, I don't see color, but I need you to see color. Because if you don't see that, you're stripping away a part of my story and you're stripping away a piece of me. But I also need you to understand and see that because of the inequities that we're talking about as it relates to the narratives that have been going on specifically with Caitlin and Angel. There has definitely been unequitable conversations around this. And I see them and I am seething because it's not right. And as our jobs, as storytellers, as marketers, we have to do everything in our power in order to like combat that. Now, we can't control the social media trolls and all that kind of stuff. They are going to have their say, right? But to your point, Taylor, about the people who have the power of that mic, you can choose to do better. You don't have to jump in and create this brouhaha of everything that's going on. We can choose to be the deliverers of this message in the equitable way and from a factual way. And I love that. And it's so hard. It's hurtful to see, honestly, to be very transparent. Title IX just celebrated, 2 years ago, 50 years. Mm-hmm. Title IX just celebrated 50 years. And it's just, we still see where women are just being used as the objects and being torn apart. When obviously we are not, we don't feel that way. We don't feel that way. But I'm hopeful that we will get to a point to where these conversations stop. And to your point, Flau'jae, about just focusing on the beauty of the sport, the selling out of the arenas, the TV rights deal that's about to be ridiculous. The teams in the WNBA are literally having wait lists for season tickets. That is amazing. That's amazing. And that is really the moment and the movement for women. And so I just hope that we really, really get back to that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I was so glad that we were going to have this conversation about that, because I mean, it's tough. You know, we definitely don't always want to have a race and ethnicity conversation, but unfortunately, that's just what it is. And I'm a type of person, I'm going to talk to you about it. So, you know, I know we have under 5 minutes left, but I definitely wanted to give everyone some time to really just talk about and just leave some words of encouragement and what you felt about participating on this panel, your passion for what you do. I think that's great, because I'm a firm believer of finding inspiration in anything. So anything that you might say might inspire someone in our audience. So I will just give you an open floor to say final words. Taylor wants to start.
I don't know. I think my final words would be, and maybe I'm biased just because the space I'm in, but I do truly believe that the world can be changed through conversation. And I don't believe that we have enough real conversations. And I think that a lot of that is because we aren't always deeply comfortable with honesty. We don't want to speak about our experiences in real ways. We don't want to talk about ourselves in ways that make us vulnerable or like susceptible to judgment. But anytime I have entered into a conversation where somebody had completely let those guards down, I feel like I went out of it very transformed and much better. And with what I do, because I'm an interviewer, I think that a lot of people believe that this job is about talking, but it's actually about listening. Yeah. And I think the more that we realize that we are not that important, but everyone is important, there is a very real transcendent power that comes from that. So I think that I would just encourage everyone in the room to try to have like a real, honest conversation once a day, maybe once a week to start. But there's a real release that happens when you can connect with somebody in a real way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any, I don't have a really long one, but this is my favorite thing that I say. I write it down every day in the morning. Just be kind to one another. Yeah. Like, I think sometimes we get lost in the sauce. As my mom like to say, don't get lost in the sauce. And I just think, just be kind to one another. Like, just be kind to one another. I think kindness goes a long way. Absolutely. And, one little smile, one little, you look good today, you beautiful, one little thing to change somebody's life. So I love that necklace. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Right. Facts. That one, of course. But yeah, just be kind to one another. That's all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Smile. I mean, it's so beautiful when you give a smile to someone. I just want to tell you a little story, which says that nothing is impossible. So I'm coming from a very religious family, very Catholic. I did all my school in the Catholic school. And one day, I was 6 years old. My mom asked me, what do you want to be? Was a very simple question. And I replied to my mom, I want to be a pope. And my mom told me, Bea, it's not possible to be a pope. And I said, why? Because only male can be a pope. And then I still remember that moment. I was thinking for a couple of minutes, and I said, Mom, I will be the first female pope. So now, I'm still not a pope, but
You are the boss.
But no, yeah, of myself, 100%. But that is the legacy that I want to leave. And if each of us that is privileged to be in the place where we are has an objective to leave a legacy, we'll make the change. And we'll make the change now.
These are all so good.
No, girl, I'm like,
gosh, I had a whole like a real marketing type thing too, but I feel like we got so deep. So I'm gonna put it all together. But I think you're hearing all of these personal stories, and that's what it is, right? So a couple days ago, we were meeting with our whole ERG team, and I realized like we're not gonna be able to achieve what we want to achieve at Jack Morton and with the practice that I lead if I don't have more voices and different perspectives and unity and diverse. It's not diverse people, it's diversity of thought, diversity of being, and understanding who everybody is. And so in order to help people think like, I don't want to tokenize you, I really want to hear you, so I want to get you to know me. So I identify, I'm a Black woman, and that's who I am, that's how I am, that's how I grew up as me, because that's also how the world saw me. My mother is Greek. The father that I know is a white German man with blue eyes and blonde hair. But that's my family, and you couldn't tell me differently. I would have never known the difference. And so all of that, grew up religious, didn't grow up with money, and my parents weren't educated. We're the first ones to graduate college. Like all these things about me are nuanced, and there's different layers. So the thing that has built who I am and where I come from in the business that I want to lead, and so what I would challenge all of you guys is challenge yourselves to see the world through other people's eyes. Don't do it by a checklist, and don't do it by a brushstroke. It matters, and it's going to be able to deepen that empathy and that authenticity, and then you're building these powerful business leaders who then give back. So I just think the biggest takeaway is the stories have to be real, and you have to really respect that.
yes, absolutely. Well, on behalf of Current Global, Jack Morton, and IPG, thank you all so much for this important conversation, not just about sports marketing, but life lessons.
If you don't take that strategy into your sports marketing
absolutely
now, then I don't know what
take
to tell
that
you.
strategy. And I love that, because I think in our rooms, especially in our industry, we need to take more real strategies and throw away the brief sometimes. Because sometimes that brief is not going to be what's going to get you the content or the winning campaign or the
brief is a box.
Right, or that Cannes Lion. Sometimes it's not going to get that. So I deeply appreciate this. My little sports fangirl heart is so excited and happy that this came to life. So thank you all so much. We appreciate that. And this has been Breaking Barriers.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're great.